So, Hail Caesar. Last week, the Coens were on the show, and you had interviewed them, and you said this lovely thing about they were talking about the film Hail Caesar, that you had sat in a room pretty much on your own watching the film.
I was entirely on my own.
Entirely right, and you had laughed all the way through it. And either Joel or Ethan said you must have looked like a complete idiot,
which I did.
Well, I must have looked like a complete idiot as well, because I did the same thing, only in a room with a bunch of other people. So,
can I just say about the Coens?
Yes.
They were fun guests.
They were really fun. They're very, very funny. Very, very funny.
We enjoyed their company quite a lot.
And anyway, so
I wanted them to stay.
You wanted them to just sort of come and move in with you and do that Joel and Ethan routine.
Anyway, carry on.
Okay, so Hail Caesar, early 1950s, 1951. Eddie Mannix, head of production, but also studio fixer, played by Josh Brolin. The beginning of the movie, we open with heavenly choirs and a crucifix and a rosary, and then Eddie Mannix in the confessional. How long has it been since you were last here? 24 hours. And he's racked with guilt about the fact that he hasn't given up smoking and he hasn't told his wife. But then we see him going off to save a starlet at 3 a.m. in the morning who may be involved in a potential French postcard situation. And we then discover that his job is basically, at Capitol Pictures, is looking after the stars, looking after the productions, making sure that the stars' personal lives stay out of the press, but feeding stories to the press. Tilda Swinton plays twin gossip columnists, although she keeps saying they're not gossip columnists, they're cultural commentators. Meanwhile, Hail Caesar, a tale of the Christ, brackets, divine presence yet to be shot, close brackets, it's got a problem with its production because its leading man, Bed Whitlock, played by George Clooney, with his goofiest "Oh brother, where art thou" expression all the way through, is kidnapped by a group calling themselves The Truth. Meanwhile, Lawrence Lorenz, a British with kind of European inflection director who is making a smart, sophisticated drama called Merrily We Dance, has ended up having a singing cowboy, Hobie, foist upon him, and all is not going well. Here's a clip.
Say your line exactly as I'm about to, just as I'm about to do.
Sure, okay.
Would that it were so simple.
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 My dear boy, why do you say that? Why do you say twere?
Well, you should say it like I said it.
Yes.
Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple.
Watch my mouth. Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple.
Keep your head still. Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple.
I'm trying to say that, Mr. Lawrence.
Lawrence,
I thought a minute ago it was Lawrence.
No, we can use Christian names, my good dear boy. Lawrence is fine, just as I call you Hobie.
Okay.
So, would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple.
Would that it were so simple. Trippingly.
Would that it were so simple. Trippingly.
No, don't say trippingly. Say the line trippingly.
Now, look,
now you try.
I'm sorry. It doesn't matter how many times I hear that, because that was the second trailer for the film, was basically that scene. And I laughed at it the first time around because basically, it's the Gene Hogg and Kathleen Freeman routine from Singing in the Rain. And I can't stand him. I can't stand him. Can't stand him. Can't. And it's a riff on that. And I think in a way it's a perfect indicator of how much you're going to like Hail Caesar, is whether or not you find that a little bit annoying, whether or not you find that absolutely funny. What I loved about Hail Caesar, there was a review of it that I was quite surprised by, a review in an American paper that had said that Hail Caesar was a movie that demonstrated how much the Coen brothers hate the movie industry. And it seemed to me to be completely the opposite of that. It is a film that is full of affection, full of laughs. I mean, on the solid laugh scale, I laughed pretty much all the way through. But I also grinned because I loved the aquatic dance routines. I loved the tap dancing, hoofing kind of on the town South Pacific numbers. I loved Hobie doing his singing cowboy lazy old moon song. I mean, essentially, the plot is like something that the dude would have dreamed up, having woken up from a particularly, having enjoyed several herbs. And the plot is all over the place and totally ramshackle and utterly ludicrous. And it would be fairly intolerable were it not for the fact that it's so consistently, affectionately funny. So what the plot basically does is gives you a way of getting from one set piece to the next, and each set piece has its own pleasures. So Roger Deakins shooting the dance numbers and shooting them in long takes, not like, edit every 2 seconds, which is now the way with modern dance numbers. The aquatic dance routines, which become a symphony of red, yellow and green as the swimming costumes turn hither and yon, and Scarlett Johansson emerges from this, mechanical whale on this huge, great big sort of waterfall. All that stuff I really enjoyed. But also what I enjoyed about it was it takes a bunch of themes that we've seen talked about recently. I mean, one of the ideas is it's about red scares and it's about red herrings. And there's the atom bomb in the background, because basically Eddie is being lured away from the studio by Lockheed, who want him to go and stop dealing with all this frivolous stuff. Come and work with serious people when you have to deal with all these frivolous things. But actually, underneath it, he wants to. And why does he want to? Because he has this almost religious devotion to the movie business. It was interesting when the Coens came on last week and they were saying that, Eddie Mannix, there was a real Eddie Mannix, his namesake, and they said this is essentially sort of a very much more sort of decent version. And actually, at the heart of this, with Josh Brolin's character, you've got a character who is, he's racked with confusion and guilt and is constantly going back to the confessional. But actually, at the end of the day, he loves the movies. He loves the idea of it. He loves the silliness. He loves the daftness. It's a job that he loves doing, and it keeps him out late at night, and it doesn't pay him properly, and it keeps him away from his wife and his family, and he's racked with guilt about that. And Lockheed have offered him this fabulous job, but he doesn't want. Why doesn't he want to? Because he appears to love the movies. And all the sort of ridiculous, sort of spiraling Hudsucker Proxy type, mad curlicues of plot involving, as I said, the red scares, and involving miscasting, and involving, mistaken assumptions of what people's aims are, and jokes about how do you balance bananas on your head. All that stuff manages to come together to make the movie, in a way, a sort of a bizarrely celebratory flip side to Barton Fink. In Barton Fink, you've basically got this spectre of a playwright who goes to Hollywood to make art and ends up writing Wallace Beery wrestling movies. The drill, big men in tights. And it sort of turns into a horror movie about 2/3 of the way through. It becomes something that is literally like a kind of descent into hell. It is Dante's Inferno. In the case of this, it's totally the other way. I mean, studio is the same. The Wallace Beery references are still there. We still have the Wallace Beery conference rooms. But there's a sense of joy, a sense of pleasure, a sense of fun. It also felt like, the Coens, had screenwriting credits on Bridge of Spies, and they had screenwriting credits on Unforgiven, the Angelina Jolie movie. And this just felt like them letting their hair down. It felt like them doing... This is a word that I don't use very often, but Hail Caesar is goofy. It's goofy, and I really enjoyed its goofiness, and I want to go and see it again straight away, not because I think it's a work of art, not because I think it's going to change the face of cinema, not because I think it's one of the Coens' best works, because I think that, you compare it to Barton Fink and Miller's Crossing and Blood Simple, perhaps it isn't, but what it is it felt like a playpen. It felt like a recreation ground. I just smiled like an idiot all the way through it. And one of the reasons I did was because, contrary to what that review in America said, it's a film which is loving and affectionate and funny. At the same, whilst it's lifting the lid on all this stuff, it's having a great time. I can imagine some people would lose patience with it, in the same way that, it took me a lot of runs to get into The Big Lebowski, because I just thought it was too kind of zany for its own good. But this isn't zany to me. This is goofy.
What's the difference between zany and goofy?
Zany is trying too hard. Goofy is actually working.
Is wacky in there?
I don't like wacky.
Yeah.